Welcome to episode 10 of The Equity Partner. I have the pleasure of interviewing Twann Atkins, who's had over 14 years as an executive in the technology industry. He's held positions as a director of solution architecture, chief technology officer, and also a solutions architect for Amazon. And so thank you for joining and thank you for being a part of the discussion. I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely.
Well, normally how I like to start off is just to kind of get a little bit of personal background. So tell me a little bit about where you're from and just a little bit about your personal background.
Yeah. So grew up in Richmond, born and raised in Richmond, elementary, high school, middle school and high school in Richmond. Only time I left Richmond was for college. I went to UNC Charlotte, ran track at UNC Charlotte. And then after that, I was in the Navy for 4 years, and went from San Diego to Dam Neck, Virginia. So back and forth in those locations while in the Navy.
Okay. Now did you gain an interest while you were in the Navy to focus more on technology, or what kind of drew you into the tech space?
So I was always into tech, right? So my degree was management and information systems.
Okay.
So that was where I really started it. I mean, I grew up wanting to have a computer and wanting to use a computer and playing old games like Oregon Trail on an old Apple computer back in the day. But that started early on, and then I just tried to do what I could while in college to learn. Matter of fact, I started out as a computer science major, but it was at that point in time I just was not focused enough in order to really make sense of it. And so I went the MIS route. And now I'm pivoting back to the computer science stuff now in my career. How ironic, right?
Oh, yeah. Now, when you were in the Navy, did you do anything specific around technology, or did you kind of change courses being in the Navy?
Nah, the whole goal in the Navy was special operations.
I got you.
That was the whole goal and point of going in. But I wanted to make sure I had an opportunity to kind of have something to fall back on too. And my degree was that, which I fell back on too. So when I got out of the Navy, my whole point was, now let's start growing a career in the IT space and fall back on that degree and make some use of it.
Okay. Well, so talk a little bit about just your professional background. So you got out of the Navy and then you went into working for a technology company at that time. And just talk about your career and the trajectory that have gotten you to this point.
Yeah, so like many times when you talk to someone who works in IT or information technology, you kind of associate them as the computer repairman, right? And so, while sometimes that association is a good association, sometimes it's not. I started out break fix. And what break fix means is literally the computer repair person, if you will, or if something with a technological slant to it fails, I was the one to either administer it or fix it or get it repaired for a small school here in Richmond. I probably worked that job, I'd say, a year and a half to 2 years. And that was kind of like a staff augmentation role before I actually got on with an organization. And when I first got on with an organization, I was a low-level engineer performing, basic day-to-day technical tasks as a networking engineer. And so that was really my first entry into the IT space, were those two roles. And considering, me, I didn't have a computer until my sophomore year in college. So I wasn't really technically deep. And so I had to really kind of earn some stripes and grow my technical acuity while, kind of growing myself through different work roles.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And when you went to the next phase of that, going from, I guess, the solutions architect to a director and then to a CTO, talk about those different positions and then kind of how you were able to kind of navigate through those positions.
Well, I mean, like the example that I just gave you was the entry point, right? And so the span of time that it took for me to take from an entry role to CTO, I mean, that was like 12 years almost. And so, you progress from an engineer to a senior engineer to a solutions architect to a leader of solutions architects, and then being able to lead entire teams where I was VP of engineering and also CTO. And so that progression is not something that happens overnight. And so a lot of it, oftentimes, if you don't own your own organization, it's about being in the right place at the right time and having the right skill set to be able to apply to the problem for a given business. And so I was fortunate enough to be in a place where I was able to grow my career through different organizations and still keep that up into the right trajectory for my career even as I was moving companies, and be put into a good place. Majority of my technical career has been around like Cisco networking, Cisco collaboration infrastructure, or any type of collaborative technology that enables the type of interaction that we're having right here today,
Mhm.
or supporting organizations in their call centers to allow them to you know support their customers in a better way. And there's depths to all of that. And I was just able to continue, pursuing the certification paths necessary, pursuing the really the right courses of action that allowed me to kind of grow to where I was.
I got you. Okay. Okay. And with those different, because most people don't have, most people don't know the specific details about the responsibilities of those roles. And so how would you summarize, you talked about a little bit about, how from a Cisco standpoint, how you make sure that it's effective and functioning, just like what we're doing today. But any
Sure.
other key details to kind of summarize the responsibilities of a solutions architect, or what those roles, even a chief technology officer, which is the highest executive position in that space. And so,
Yeah.
could you summarize those responsibilities, what it looks like for somebody that's not in the space?
Yeah. So taking a step back, and I'll answer that question here in a moment. Like you got to understand, like my passion's always been the intersection of business
Mhm.
and solving business problems with a technological solution, right? So when you look at the highest role that I've gained in that being CTO and vice president of engineering, you kind of need to look at those two roles that I had. They had truly diametrically opposed goals, right? The CTO, the goal of the CTO is to come up with a technology vision for an organization and help them chart a course to achieve that vision. And me being in a professional services organization, that vision had to make money for the company,
Mhm.
right? And then on the other side, as vice president of engineering, I was responsible also for keeping people busy and really the people management of close to 100 people within the organization. And so while I need to chart out a future facing vision that may not produce a tangible outcome immediately, but long term it will. But I also had to fight the day to day of keeping my team members busy so that they could the company could make money. What was the ultimate thing? And so sometimes you get put in roles like that, but really you got to let your passion of which was mine was allowing business problems when they're surfaced to be able to come up with a technological solution to solve them. And that's what kind of helped me navigate both sides of those roles. Not to mention being a people person, and help wanting to just genuinely help people navigate not only their careers, but also navigate the day to day world of a professional services organization that delivers IT solutions.
Mhm.
Is something that I enjoy as well.
So talk about now. So now your current role, you're a solutions architect with Amazon in
Yeah.
the AWS division. So those that don't know about that division, just summarize what your day to day looks like, and how your current role impacts the company and also businesses or individuals.
Yeah, and so many times people may look at and this is something that anybody who's young in career or even currently in a career space where you kind of feel like you've maxed out,
Mhm.
you got to take a self assessment and look at yourself and say, all right, where do I want to be 3, 5, 10 years from now? And can I get there where I am now? In my self-assessment, I looked at, all right, do I want to own a business? Because I've already reached CTO role prior to being, quite honestly, prior to being 35 years old. And then I reached the VP of engineering role as well as the CTO role prior to being 40. And the questions I had to ask myself was, will I be able to continue this trajectory up and to the right for another, let's just say 20 years? And the answer to me was no. So I've had a history of being a solutions architect. And for those who don't know, a solutions architect is really one that can take all bounds of IT within an organization, the networking, the security, the applications, the data center and cloud architectures, and come up and mash all of those pieces together and come up with a tangible solution that solves a customer's business problem. So when I looked at the trajectory that I was going on, I said sometimes you got to kind of start back where you used to be, or where you kind of first cut your teeth, if you will.
Yeah.
And Amazon provided that opportunity for me to move into a new space, that space being cloud, move into a space where I was an individual contributor. I didn't have people responsibility at this point, but it allowed me to not only grow to the level of it, will allow me to grow to the level of a CTO, or beyond. May not carry that exact same title, but when you compare the roles to a CTO of a private organization to either a senior leader or director or EVP or SVP of a public organization, those two roles are leaps and bounds different when it comes to level of responsibility and scope of the role. And so that's where I want to be. And so you got songs out there started from the bottom and now you here, but I'm really trying to start back from the bottom and grow back up with
Yeah.
a publicly held company.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think people, don't, especially if you don't have the experience, the experiences that you'll have in a private organization is vast, but it's different than what you would have in a public organization. So your impact is just as important in a public organization, just a larger company.
Yeah.
So I know you and I had talked before about, when you joined Amazon, and what your plans were. And so I think it's fun watching all that stuff develop.
Well, you got to not be afraid to take a bet on yourself, right? And not necessarily worry about what the community will say, but worry about how can you continue to keep the trajectory that you want for your career.
Yeah,
Sometimes taking those types of risks are what's necessary, especially if you don't own your own business.
that's right. Well, talk about the opportunities just in the tech field? If there's a young man or young woman out there trying to get in the tech space, or trying to invest in the tech space, where do you see the biggest opportunities in the future of the industry in general?
So oftentimes many people that either may not be versed in IT or may have a very narrow scope of what IT is, assume IT is just being on your traditional IT support team that either supports an application within an organization or supports an infrastructure within an organization. Infrastructure can be a lot of different things. I mean, it can be the networking, the wireless, it can be the data center, it can be security, etc.
Mhm.
And IT kind of goes further than that, right? Like I said earlier, I'm interested in the intersection of business problems and technology. And so, you know, think about this as an example, right? And I apologize for my dog in the background.
No, it's all right.
Um, so, what about the retailer or like a restaurant that has a single phone line and is not versed in online ordering because of like COVID? They're going to have a hard time sustaining their business. And I'm sure, without naming names, you can think of some restaurants that are small in nature, that have a small staff, that may not be technically versed. But with that single phone line, they can only take but so many orders at a time, right? Really, it's one order at a time that they can take based on the number of phone lines that they have. And so, well, a traditional solution would probably be let's add more phone lines to that mix, right? But again, that can only scale but so much because of cost and benefits. So what if we could take that single phone line and allow customers to call in and interact with a voice system where that voice system could have their voice transcribed into text, and that text could be an order for them that will print out just like it does on any kitchen for them to cook and make ready for the individual to come pick it up. And so that doesn't sound like a traditional IT solution, but it is an IT solution. And it's using things like artificial intelligence in order to determine what someone's voice is saying
Hmm.
and translating that into text that can be read by another machine down the line. And so those are the types of constructs that, folks that are not necessarily understanding of or have a narrow scope of IT need to begin thinking about, because IT doesn't isn't just that back office organization anymore. We're front and center and supporting a lot of transformations that small, medium, and large size businesses are going through right now. And you have to kind of think outside of the box on where you can apply technology, and that's just one example.
Yeah, I think COVID has kind of shown the importance or expedited the need for technology to play a major factor in what people are doing today. I mean, I think nobody would have anticipated that the world would kind of shut down. But at the same time, a lot of these solutions had been in the works. They had, a lot of the automation to the processes had been going on, but it just hadn't been fully implemented. And I think people are seeing how important it is
Yeah, I mean, and so when you think about opportunities afield now and where things are going,
now. Hmm.
10 years ago, really infrastructure was the name of the game. And but where things are going now, it's application development. And you don't necessarily have to be a developer to get into that space, right? You don't have to have a 20-year software development history in order to get into that space.
Hmm.
Artificial intelligence and machine learning, these are all avenues that we need to be collectively versed in, so that we can solve those business problems in unique ways, and then create mechanisms so that it's not as difficult to repeat solving those problems, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you, and I think that's the importance of why I thought it would be a good timing for us to talk, because I think that there have been a lot of discussions about the importance of technology, and there's a lot of people that don't know as much as you might know because you're living in that space day in and day out. Um,
Sure.
to talk about just the characteristics, or discuss some characteristics that an individual would need to succeed in the tech space. There could be a kid out there that, and I say I use the word kid, but there could be a man or a woman that would like to get in the tech space. They love technology similar to you. What does it take to work in that field? And what would you say has helped you be successful?
So, the number one skill that anybody needs if you are in a non-technical career today, just starting out in technology, or you're in college or high school looking to move into the tech career
Hmm.
space, you got to have grit, right? And grit, what I mean by grit is this space is constantly moving. And so you're going to be around people that are going to be smarter than you. You're going to be around people that have been in the career space longer than you. But you got to have the desire to be in the space and stay in the space regardless of, those people, if you will. And so when you start looking beyond grit, you have to have the ability to work after hours, because you have to research, you have to learn, you have to keep up with the latest trends. And keeping up with the latest trends is probably one of the hardest things to do in the tech space, because you have your day job of keeping the lights on for whatever organization you're working with,
Hmm.
or your own organization for that matter. And then in the afternoons, it comes down to what certification are you training for, or what type of software development environment are you training for, or code, programming languages are you looking to learn, so that you can better not only yourself, but make yourself more marketable for the future, if you
Mhm.
will.
Mhm.
um, this is just not a 9 to 5 job. You'll get out of it what you put into it. And sometimes you put a lot into it. Um, and then the last thing I'd say is communication, right? A lot of times we're viewed through a different lens, if you will, from the standpoint of, we may talk a little bit different. We may not communicate as in the same way that others communicate. But you got to have the confidence and the ability to kind of break down either a given problem, or to break down, a given scenario, and talk about, the situation, the what you need to be responsible for, or the team needs to be responsible for, and the actions that you're going to take and the results that come out of it. And just when you think about it in that construct, you can improve your communication to be just as great as everyone else is. So grit, this isn't a 9 to 5. You got to work after hours. Communication, those are all things that are key for being successful.
And it's funny, communication has kind of come up in so many different fields. I think any field, anybody is striving to be successful. I think communication is extremely important. And me personally, that was one of the classes I took kind of post graduation, was public speaking, because it's so important to communicate clearly and make sure that people can understand you from various backgrounds.
Yeah.
And especially in your field, because you're trying to, the tech space speak just like the financial space speak. You can sound like you're talking in a different language to different people. And so sometimes you got to break it down so they can fully understand where you're trying to go.
You got to be good at telling stories.
Yeah.
Storytelling is a critical component of being an executive in any organization, because that's how you break down the complex and make it consumable to those who may not be as versed.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I wanted to talk about, and you and I talked about this in the past, was just lack of diversity in the tech space. And when we say diversity, I'm speaking directly to how do we get more Black and Brown people into the tech space. I mean, I think the tech space can be diverse in ways, but I think that there is a level of improvement that can be done to help more Black and Brown people get involved in technology. So, how do you view the lack of diversity? I mean, do you see it as a problem, and where are you seeing some opportunities to make improvements?
I have two lenses on this particular problem. One is a traditional lens, and one is a non-traditional lens. And when you think about those from a traditional perspective, there is a lack of diversity. When you think about it from a non-traditional perspective, there is not a lack of diversity. So I'll attack both of those, starting with the traditional first. I had an executive for a multi-billion-dollar Fortune 50 company say the other day that diversity, equity, and inclusion is important, but I need to understand the value that the business is going to have by investing in DE&I and creating a more diverse environment. And I was kind of taken aback when he said that.
Mhm.
But in traditional business, organizations are always focusing on the bottom dollar, and you can't take that aspect of a conversation personally. You need to try to figure out ways to put action in order to make it work. So the value in how we can get more Black and Brown people involved in technology is we have to start early. We have to start early, and not only with the STEM programs in elementary, middle, and high school, but we need to create avenues to the workforce for those who don't necessarily want to go to college, because everybody's not going to college. And I can count numerous people who have made successful careers in technology without going to college or having a 4-year degree, because they work hard on those grit, working beyond the 9 to 5 and attaining certifications and really just kind of grow themselves professionally. Um, and so, from a non-traditional standpoint, we just need to have access to tangible projects earlier on in life, right? In elementary school, middle school, and high school, we need to be working on that intersection of technology and business problems. And whether that's through workshops, whether that's through upskilling and certifications, or even if it's, through what we call hackathons, where we put a business problem out there and we get a diverse team of folks together, some experts, some, novice, and everybody's going to grow as a part of that type of experience. And so that's the non-traditional side. I'm sorry, the traditional side. The non-traditional side is we see entrepreneurs that are Black and brown every single day that are using technology in ways to accelerate their business. Heck, the entire social media scene that a lot of Black and brown, a lot of us are dominating in, we're using technology to do that, whether it be recording video content, make that content available for, others to consume, or we're creating, education, seminars for folks to consume the content and help themselves grow. Or if we're creating e-commerce sites that, we're trying to get a product out to market, rather quickly. All of these non-traditional means are available today for those who don't want to be a part of the traditional IT space. And I think we just need to continue to do our due diligence in making those opportunities available and creating awareness around those opportunities for those who are either elementary school, middle school, high school, and early in career, so that they're not constricted by what they think is not possible. And, they can begin to experiment, on their own in a safe way, in a low cost way or no cost way, so that they can begin seeing that, technology is just not restricted to that backroom IT space.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I think there are so many other opportunities that people aren't aware of. And I think that, just like you mentioned in the beginning, I think that getting kids at a younger age and making sure that they're educated early on. And just one of the key points you said too is sometimes it doesn't just take a degree. You could be somebody that has a ton of grit, that has a ton of passion for the tech world and succeed in that world. And so I think that's something that people need to be aware of, and need to understand that there are plenty of opportunities. You have to work hard at it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You really gotta put your time in and work hard at it. And I'll be honest too, it takes opportunities. It takes people that have made it to also reach back and pull others forward too and give them opportunities.
Yeah.
And not opportunities just 100% succeed, opportunities to fail too,
Yep.
right? Because we've all failed and we've all had to learn from our failures. And it's that learning that allows you to kind of build those calluses so that you're not as susceptible to failure, later on as you progress throughout your career.
That's right. That's right. What advice would you give to somebody that, and you've kind of given that a little bit, but just if you're looking to start a career, and let's say you graduated from college, uh, you, what advice would you give somebody that you felt like you didn't have, where you would have done a little bit differently once you graduated and were ready to get in the tech space?
Come talk to me. That's
Okay.
what I would say.
Mhm.
Creating meaningful relationships is the most important thing. It supersedes any technical skill that you have. It supersedes what college you went to. It supersedes everything. Meaningful relationships is where you click with someone and you've either had a shared experience or you're building towards a shared experience. And it's in that meaningful relationship, what some folks call a network, that you begin to build, the possibilities for your career trajectory. Every job that I've had is because of a relationship that I've built. Point blank, period. Whether it was a relationship that manifested itself, the year of making that relationship or 10 years later.
Yeah.
Every job, every opportunity that I've had is because I've created meaningful relationships. So that's the first, and I would say probably the most important thing. The second would be do a self-assessment. Where are you today? Where do you want to be 1, 3, 5, 10 years from now? Right. And think about it from a standpoint of how can you put a plan together to get there? And it's not a detailed plan. You don't have to write down, 20 pages for that plan. You can if you want to, if you're that detailed oriented.
Mhm.
You need to be able to visualize yourself where you want to be and the steps that you need to take in order to get there, and then start acting on those steps. And I think if you put those two pieces together, building meaningful relationships and putting out, a plan of where you'd like to go and where you'd like to be, that'll help you be successful.
I completely agree with that statement. I think people don't put enough value in relationships as they should, and I think the younger that you're able to do it, and you have to be a risk taker, just like you said, you gotta. There are people out there that are willing to help you. Find you a mentor, be persistent, and I think that's the key because when people get in management positions or executive positions like yourself, they're trying to think of who's next, who can take my place or who can come and add value to my team. And if you have a relationship with them, you'll be the first person that person thinks of. So
Sure.
I think that was a great statement about some advice for somebody looking to get a career.
Yeah, absolutely.
What the last piece is the fun piece. So and I think you've given me a lot of good information, and I'm trying to think about it if I missed anything that I felt was important. But and actually, before I get to the speed round, I'm gonna ask you one more question. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm in the financial space, and so I look at investments in technology,
Mhm.
and so I look where are the opportunities, where are the game changers.
Mhm.
So one of the big things that comes up a lot is AWS and what the meaning of AWS is. I don't know if I fully heard, and I might have missed that piece, but how would you define how Amazon is changing that space and what AWS means to you and to the company, and what impact it will have?
Well, you got to think about it. So the way that AWS started, so Amazon and AWS, they were all a part of Amazon. AWS is really the backbone that supports Amazon.
Mhm.
Back in the day, Amazon needed an infrastructure to help their book selling business, and that infrastructure, they ultimately realized that it was an infrastructure that could be scaled up, and meaning made bigger to support other organizations, and they began to sell it. And so, as you progress down that path, you start to understand that AWS is kind of the same infrastructure that many organizations have on their premises today. It just gives you the ability of, scaling up, scaling down, only paying for the parts and pieces that you need when you need it.
Mhm.
And when you don't need it any longer, you can effectively turn it off, sort of like the light switch, right? When the
Mhm.
light switch is turned off, you're no longer paying for that electricity for that particular room.
Yeah.
And so what AWS has been providing organizations is the ability to have agility in new ways, take team members that were maybe resonated to back office jobs and allow them to now move into spaces that are interesting. I'll just use AI and ML, or machine learning, because we talked about it earlier, artificial intelligence and machine learning,
Mhm.
and give them new opportunities to continue to grow their career. um, and it's about scale and allowing organizations to go from a small business today, but maybe they want to go global in the future, and support where their customers are in the future. And again, you're only paying for what you use.
Mhm.
So AWS, though it's a segment of Amazon, it is a business that really is what's supporting what Amazon.com does on a day in and day out basis.
Mhm.
Uh, and it does a lot for many organizations that are looking to do very similar roles for things.
That's great information, man. And I think people have heard it. I think if they've heard about it, but just digging a little bit deeper into the impact and what the meaning of it, because I remember when Amazon first started, and that was it started more around the book sales and the digital books, and now it's kind of developed into a massive conglomerate of many options for people that have needs in their everyday life. And
Well, I
so,
mean, it supports everybody from small businesses to state, local governments to, universities to, your large Fortune 50, 100 enterprises, at global scale or, micro scale. So it really allows you to go in a lot of different directions, either for your business, but the number one goal, right, is we want to, put solutions in place that help solve, customers' business problems,
yeah.
and that's the most important thing that we're all about. And that's what we do on a day in and day out basis.
Hmm. Absolutely. Okay. We'll closing round, speed round, 5 questions, 5 quick answers. And it's meant to be fun, but it's also meant to just share a little bit about your background. So to start off, favorite book.
I'm not gonna do the favorite book. I'll do the latest book.
Uh,
It was Questlove has a Creative Quest book, and
Okay.
I'm interested in the dynamic around food and technology,
Okay.
and trying to build something off of that. So his book is a book that I'm currently reading, and trying to understand how he mixes music with food, or his love of food.
Okay. All right. First car.
What was my first car? It was a Honda Civic,
Okay.
and I can't remember what year it was, but it only had a driver's side mirror. It didn't have a passenger side mirror. I think it was like a '94 or something like that,
Oh yeah, yeah.
uh, or maybe even a '90. I'm not even certain, but anyway, yeah, that was my first car.
Yeah, well, I had a 93 Accord, so I can understand and appreciate the Hondas.
Yep.
Best advice ever received.
Uh, that's a difficult one. Honestly, I gotta say is before I left to go to college, I was told create as many meaningful relationships as you possibly can,
Mhm.
because relationships is how you get jobs.
Yeah.
And I've just been holding tight on to that, until this day, as you heard a little bit earlier.
Yeah. Okay. Biggest lesson learned
Don't be afraid of failure.
and
Don't be afraid of failure.
greatest accomplishment.
Failing at a dream and then realizing that it's okay,
Okay.
and you can still progress from there, and you build a significant level of strength from that failure. um yeah, it continues to go on, and you got to continue to go on.
I love that. And that's a perfect way to end this discussion, man. I mean, I think again the point of the equity partner is really to kind of give back and share ideas, share thoughts, lessons, and hopefully somebody's gained some information that they can take and continue to push towards their dream. I'm happy to have you as a friend. I'm happy to have you as a guest on the equity partner. And anything that you want to leave as a last point before we end?
So first off, thanks for the opportunity. I definitely appreciate our friendship. I definitely appreciate our conversations. If there's anything that I could leave, it probably would be just, for our Black and Brown audience, don't be afraid to be your authentic self. No matter where you are going into, be your authentic self. Be in the right, but be your authentic self, because there's value in that. And once you realize that value, it's kind of like a superpower that you have. Um, so that's what I'll leave you with.
Perfect, perfect. Well, I appreciate it, Twann. Thank you again for joining. And this is episode 10. And this is such a great episode to give back. And I appreciate you joining.
Absolutely. Take care and have a great one. Okay.
You too, man. Take care.